The dust cloud from the approaching rider was visible long before Lucy Larson could make out his silhouette against the vast Montana sky. She stood on the porch of her modest homestead, hand shielding her eyes from the summer sun of 1878, watching as the stranger's horse cantered closer. It wasn't until he dismounted, removing his worn Stetson to reveal startlingly blue eyes beneath a shock of dark hair, that Lucy felt something stir within her, a feeling she'd buried alongside 3 tiny graves behind her cabin. "Madam," the tall cowboy nodded respectfully. "Name's Zachariah James. Folks call me Zach, passing through to Sweetwater. My horse threw a shoe about 2 miles back." Lucy brushed a strand of copper hair from her face, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance after a morning of gardening. "There's a water pump out back for your horse, Mr. James." Town's still another day's ride. His smile crinkled the sun-weathered skin around his eyes. "Much obliged, been a long, dusty trail." Lucy hadn't intended to invite him to stay, but as dusk approached and Zachariah fixed not only his horse's shoe but also her leaking roof and broken fence gate, the words tumbled out. "Supper's nearly ready. Least I can do." Over rabbit stew and cornbread, Lucy learned Zach was a former ranch hand heading north to start fresh. He'd saved enough for a small parcel of land outside Sweetwater, hoping to raise horses. When he asked about her story, Lucy hesitated. Few knew the whole truth of why she lived alone on the edge of nowhere. "My husband Thomas passed 3 winters ago, pneumonia," she stirred her stew, "been managing on my own since." What she didn't mention were the 3 pregnancies that had ended in heartbreak, 2 stillborn babies, and one that never made it past the 4th month. The local doctor had eventually told her what she'd already suspected. She would never carry a child to term. Something was wrong inside her, something no medicine could fix. By morning, Zachariah had gone, leaving behind a repaired chicken coop and a hollow feeling in Lucy's chest she couldn't quite name. 2 weeks later, he returned with supplies from town. "Thought you might need some things," he said simply, unloading flour, coffee, and nails from his saddlebags. "I'm not a charity case, Mr. James," Lucy replied, even as she noted how the flour barrel had indeed run nearly empty. "Never said you were, Mrs. Larson." His eyes held hers steadily. "Sometimes neighbors just help neighbors. We're hardly neighbors. Your place is a day's ride from here. Close enough in these parts." He grinned, and Lucy found herself smiling back despite her best intentions. That summer, Zachariah's visits became regular. He'd arrive with small necessities or fresh game, stay to help with chores, and leave by nightfall. Lucy began to anticipate the dust cloud on the horizon, found herself pinning her hair and changing her dress before he appeared. By August, when he brought her wildflowers picked from the prairie, Lucy realized she was falling in love with the quiet cowboy who asked for nothing but gave so much. One evening, as they sat on her porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Lucy finally told him the full truth. "I buried 3 babies out back, Zach." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The first 2 never took their first breaths. The third." She swallowed hard. "Thomas and I tried for 5 years. The doctor says I can't, that I'll never." The words stuck in her throat. Zach's calloused hand found hers, his touch gentle. "I'm sorry, Lucy. Most men want children, a family." She stared at the darkening horizon. "I can't give that to anyone." "There's more than one way to make a family," he said quietly. The first kiss they shared that night was tentative, both of them wounded in different ways, both cautious about hope. But when he pressed his lips to hers a second time, something broke loose inside Lucy, a dam of loneliness and grief giving way to possibility. Zach continued visiting through September and October, always respectful, never presuming. They spoke of their past, his years drifting after the war, her childhood in Pennsylvania before coming west with Thomas. When the first snow fell in November, Lucy feared the weather would keep him away, but he arrived on horseback, snow dusting his shoulders with firewood strapped to his saddle. You shouldn't have risked the journey, she scolded, even as her heart leapt at the sight of him. Had something important to say, he replied, stamping snow from his boots. By the fire that night, Zachariah James asked Lucy Larson to be his wife. I know what you told me, he said, holding her hands in his. And it changes nothing about how I feel. We can build something good together, Lucy. Tears filled her eyes. I can't give you children, Zach. I'm asking for you, not for children you can't bear. His voice was firm. Say yes. They married on Christmas Day in the tiny church in Sweetwater, with only the preacher and his wife as witnesses. Lucy moved to Zach's small ranch, where he'd built a snug cabin with a view of the mountains. That winter, they learned each other's rhythms, his early rising to tend the horses, her knack for turning simple ingredients into satisfying meals. At night, they discovered each other's bodies with tender patience, and Lucy found healing in Zach's embrace. Spring brought new life to the ranch foals from Zach's 2 mares, chickens laying eggs, vegetables sprouting in Lucy's garden. But it also brought an unexpected encounter that would change their lives. Zach returned from Sweetwater one April afternoon with news. The stagecoach brought terrible tidings, he said, removing his hat as he entered the cabin. Influenza hit the mining camp over in Cedar Gulch. Lots of orphans, Lucy. The Reverend's wife is caring for 8 children, but there's more than the town can handle. Lucy felt the familiar ache. Those poor little ones. That night they lay awake talking. What if, Zach began cautiously, what if we took in a child, just one to start? Lucy turned to face him in the darkness. You'd want that. I've been thinking about what I said before about there being more than one way to make a family. His voice grew more confident. These children need homes, Lucy. We have one to offer. The next day they rode to Sweetwater together. The Reverend's wife, Mrs. Peterson, greeted them warmly, surrounded by children of various ages. The James family, what brings you to town? We heard about the orphans from Cedar Gulch, Lucy said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We thought perhaps. A small girl with dark braids caught Lucy's eye. She sat apart from the others, a tattered doll clutched to her chest. That's Emma, Mrs. Peterson said softly. 7 years old, parents both gone within a week of each other, hasn't spoken a word since. By sunset, Emma was riding home with them, her few possessions in a flour sack, her solemn eyes taking in everything. That first night when Lucy tucked her into bed in the small room Zach had hurriedly prepared, the child clung to her hand. You're safe now, Lucy whispered. We'll take care of you. Emma didn't speak for 3 weeks. She followed Lucy like a shadow, helped with simple chores, and watched Zach with the horses from a distance. Then one morning, as Lucy taught her to gather eggs, a tiny voice said, "This one's warm." Lucy froze, then carefully placed the egg basket down before kneeling to Emma's level. Yes, it is. That means it's fresh. My mama taught me about eggs, Emma said, her voice rusty from disuse, before she got sick. That night, Lucy cried in Zach's arms, not from sorrow, but from a new kind of joy she'd never expected to feel. Word spread about the James family taking in an orphan. By midsummer, 2 more children had joined their household brothers named Samuel and Joseph, ages 10 and 8, whose father had been killed in a mine collapse. Lucy's days became a whirlwind of cooking, laundry, and tending to skinned knees and nightmares. Zach built additional rooms onto the cabin, taught the boys to ride, and never once complained about the noise or expense. You're a natural mother, he told Lucy one evening as they watched the children playing in the yard. They're healing my heart, she admitted. In ways I never thought possible. Then came Daniel, a troublesome 12-year-old who'd been shuffled between 4 homes before the Jameses took him in. His anger tested Lucy's patience and Zach's temper, but they refused to give up on him. Slowly, through firm boundaries and unwavering love, Daniel began to trust that this home might be permanent. By Christmas of 1879, the James Ranch housed 6 children, the newest additions being 4-year-old twins Grace and Faith, whose mother had died in childbirth and whose father had abandoned them soon after. Their cabin, though expanded, was bursting at the seams. "We need more space," Zach acknowledged one night after the children were asleep. "And they need schooling," Lucy added. "I'm doing what I can, but Daniel and Emma especially need proper teaching if they're to have opportunities." The nearest school was in Sweetwater, too far for daily travel. Other ranching families in the area faced the same challenge, sending children to town to board during the school year or foregoing education entirely. That winter, Zach began drawing plans. He showed them to Lucy one evening, sketches for a schoolhouse to be built on the eastern edge of their property, where it could serve both their growing family and neighboring children. "It's a wonderful dream," Lucy said, tracing the drawings with her finger. "But how would we afford it?" "I've been saving," Zach replied, "and I spoke with the McKinneys and the Robertsons. They'd contribute labor and some materials if their children could attend." He took her hand. "We could hire a teacher, Lucy. A real one." Construction began in the spring of 1880. Neighbors came from miles around to help raise the frame of the simple one-room schoolhouse. Lucy and the other women provided meals for the workers, while the children carried water and gathered stones for the foundation. Daniel, who had initially scoffed at the idea of school, showed unexpected interest in the building process. Zach noticed the boy's aptitude and began teaching him basic carpentry. "You've got a good eye," he told Daniel, who tried and failed to hide his pride. As the schoolhouse took shape, word spread. Families from as far as 20 miles away inquired about sending their children. What had begun as a solution for their own family was becoming something bigger, a community gathering place, a beacon of opportunity in an isolated corner of the territory. "We'll need desks," Lucy realized one day. "And books, slates, a bell, already ordered," Zach said with a smile, "should arrive on next month's supply wagon." "How are we paying for all this?" Lucy asked, concerned about their finances. Zach hesitated. "I sold 2 of the yearlings. And—" He looked away. "I wrote to my brother in Boston. He's doing well in banking, sent enough to cover the teacher's salary for the first year." Lucy was stunned. In all their time together, Zach had mentioned his estranged brother only once. "You reached out to him for this?" "For our family," Zach corrected. "He's curious about us now, might even visit someday." The schoolhouse was completed by late summer, a white clapboard building with tall windows to catch the light, a small bell tower, and a covered porch. Inside were rows of sturdy desks, a black slate board across the front wall, and bookshelves filled with donated volumes. Lucy stood in the empty room the evening before the school was to open, overwhelmed by what they had accomplished. "What are you thinking?" Zach asked, coming to stand beside her. "About how full this room will be tomorrow," she replied. 15 children, Zach, 15, including our 6, he said, slipping an arm around her waist. "Our 6. The word still amazed Lucy. In less than 2 years, she had gone from a childless widow to the mother of half a dozen children who called her Ma, and looked to her for everything from bandaging cuts to explaining thunderstorms. Miss Abigail Thornton, the young teacher they'd hired from Chicago, arrived the week before school began. Fresh-faced and eager, she boarded with the Jameses, sharing a room with Emma and the twins. The night before classes started, as Lucy tucked the younger children into bed, Emma asked a question that caught her off guard. "Ma, are we real? Are we your real children?" Lucy sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. "You're as real as my heart beating in my chest, Emma. Family isn't just about being born to someone. It's about belonging together." "But you didn't get to have your own babies," Emma persisted. Lucy had never explicitly told the children about her inability to bear children, but somehow Emma had pieced it together. "God had a different plan for me," Lucy said softly. "Instead of babies growing under my heart, I got children who grew inside it." She tapped her chest. "And that makes you every bit mine." Emma's arms wrapped around Lucy's neck. "I'm glad you're my ma now." The first day of school dawned clear and cool. Children from the James Ranch and neighboring homesteads gathered in the yard, dressed in their best clothes, clutching lunch pails and books. Lucy rang the bell that would become a familiar sound in the valley, the signal for learning to begin. As Miss Thornton called the students inside, Zach came to stand beside Lucy. "Look what you've done," he said with pride. "What we've done," she corrected him. "I never imagined this, Zach, any of it." "I did," he said simply. "The moment I met you, I knew you had too much love to keep it bottled up inside. These children needed that love, and so did I." That fall established a new rhythm to their lives. Each morning, Lucy would prepare breakfast for their brood plus Miss Thornton, then watch them walk the short path to the schoolhouse. Her days were filled with household tasks, tending to the youngest twins during school hours and preparing for the return of hungry learners in the afternoon. Zach continued expanding their horse breeding operation, with Daniel increasingly by his side learning the business. The schoolhouse quickly became more than just a place of learning. On Sundays, when the circuit preacher wasn't in Sweetwater, neighbors gathered there for Bible readings. Community socials and holiday celebrations filled the simple building with music and laughter. For Christmas that year, the children performed a nativity play, with Faith and Grace as angels with wings made from old flour sacks. Winter brought challenges, days when snow made the journey impossible for the farther students, the struggle to keep the schoolhouse warm enough, and an outbreak of scarlet fever that closed classes for 2 weeks. But it also brought moments of pure joy. Watching Joseph learn to read his first full book, seeing Emma blossom under Miss Thornton's gentle guidance, celebrating Daniel's 13th birthday with his first real party. Spring arrived with news that would again transform their family. The Reverend's wife sent word of 3 more children needing home, siblings whose parents had died when their wagon overturned crossing a swollen river. "I don't know, Lucy," Zach said when she showed him the letter. 9 children. The cabin's already full to bursting." Lucy sat beside him at their kitchen table. "I've been thinking, the room above the stables, we could finish it properly. The older boys would love living out there, especially Daniel. He's practically sleeping in the stables already." Zach studied her face. "You really want to do this?" "I want them to stay together," Lucy said firmly. "No one should separate brothers and sisters." 2 days later, they traveled to Sweetwater to meet Peter, Charlotte, and baby William, ages 6, 4, and 18 months. Charlotte hid behind her brother, thumb in mouth, while William wailed in the Reverend's wife's arms. Peter stood straight, trying to appear brave though his chin trembled. "We've come to take you home," Lucy said, kneeling to their level. "All of you together." Peter's eyes widened. "Together." "You promise?" "I promise," Lucy replied. "We have other children too. They're excited to meet you." The integration of 3 traumatized siblings into their already large family wasn't smooth. Peter wet his bed for weeks. Charlotte refused to let the baby out of her sight, even during meals. William cried through the night, keeping everyone awake. The other children alternated between welcoming their new siblings and resenting the divided attention. But gradually, healing began. Peter found a friend in Samuel, both boys discovering a shared interest in fishing. Charlotte formed an attachment to Miss Thornton, following the young teacher everywhere at school. And baby William, passed from loving arms to loving arms, began to smile again. Summer brought the completion of the room above the stables, which Daniel, Samuel, and Joseph claimed with boyish enthusiasm. Lucy worried about them being separate from the main house, but Zach assured her it was a natural step toward independence for the older boys. "Besides," he added with a wink, "now we have space for more." "Zachariah James," Lucy gasped. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" His laughter filled the kitchen. "I'm just saying the good Lord seems to have plans for us, best to be prepared." Those plans revealed themselves in August when a frantic knock came at their door well past midnight. Lucy opened it to find a young Native American woman, no more than 17, holding a bundle wrapped in a blanket. "Please," the girl said in halting English, "help my sister." She pulled back the blanket to reveal a tiny infant with a shock of black hair. The young mother, they learned, had died in childbirth the day before. The girl who gave her name as Morning Bird had walked miles from her people's camp to bring the baby to the family she had heard took in children who needed homes. "My sister married a white trader," she explained as Lucy warmed milk for the desperately hungry infant. "Our people." Some would not accept the child. By dawn, Morning Bird had reluctantly departed, leaving her tiny niece in Lucy's care. They named her Lily, for the wild flowers that grew along the creek behind the schoolhouse. Word of the James family's ever-expanding household spread throughout the territory. That fall, the territorial governor himself paid a visit during a campaign tour, bringing with him a journalist from a San Francisco newspaper. The resulting article, "The Cowboy Who Built a Schoolhouse," a Montana love story, brought unexpected attention and much-needed donations of books, supplies, and even funds to support the school. "You're famous now," Lucy teased Zach after reading the article. "Famous for marrying the most remarkable woman in Montana," he replied. "Everything we've built started with you, Lucy." As their second Christmas with the children approached, Lucy found herself reflecting on the incredible journey of the past 2 years. From a lonely widow convinced she would never know motherhood, she had become ma to 10 children of various ages, backgrounds, and needs. The grief of her inability to bear children hadn't vanished entirely. There were still moments when she wondered about the babies she'd lost, but it had transformed into something else. A deeper capacity to love children who hadn't grown beneath her heart. On Christmas Eve, after the younger children were asleep, Lucy and Zach sat by the fire with cups of coffee laced with whiskey, a rare indulgence. "I have something for you," Zach said, producing a small package from his pocket. "Wanted to give it to you without the little ones around." Lucy unwrapped the brown paper to find a silver locket. When she opened it, she gasped. Inside was a tiny, perfect photograph of all 10 children arranged in front of the schoolhouse. "How did you manage this?" she asked, tears filling her eyes. "That photographer who came with the governor owed me a favor." Zach fastened the locket around her neck. "Now you can keep them all close to your heart where they belong." Lucy touched the locket, then leaned forward to kiss him. "Thank you for understanding what I needed before I knew myself." "What do you mean?" he asked. "When I told you I couldn't have children, you said there was more than one way to make a family." She gestured around their cabin, festooned with pine boughs and paper chains made by small hands. "You didn't just give me one child, Zach. You built me a schoolhouse and filled it with them." "We built it together," he corrected gently, "and we're not finished yet." Lucy raised an eyebrow. "Zachariah James, are you telling me there are more children coming our way?" He laughed. "No immediate plans." "But Miss Thornton mentioned 2 families moving to the area next spring. That'll bring our school to 20 students." His expression grew more serious. "And I've been thinking about the older children, Daniel especially. He needs more advanced education than Miss Thornton can provide." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm writing to my brother again, about possibly sending Daniel east for schooling in a few years, if he wants to go." Zach took her hand. "Our children deserve every opportunity, Lucy, even the ones that might take them away from us someday." Lucy nodded, feeling the familiar mixture of pride and loss that parenting entailed. "That's what makes them ours, isn't it? Wanting what's best for them, even when it's hard." On Christmas morning, their cabin overflowed with the chaos and joy of 10 excited children opening simple gifts, new mittens knitted by Lucy, wooden toys carved by Zach, books and candy from the general store. As Lucy watched Zach patiently helping little William unwrap a package, she felt a fullness in her heart that no pregnancy could have provided. That evening, neighbors joined them at the schoolhouse for a community celebration. As families gathered around the piano Miss Thornton played, Lucy stood at the back of the room, watching her children, for they were truly hers now, in every way that mattered, singing carols alongside their friends. Zach found her there, slipping his arm around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. "More than I ever dreamed possible," she answered truthfully. "You know," he said thoughtfully, When I first came riding up to your homestead that day, I was just looking for help with a thrown horseshoe. And instead you found a wife who couldn't give you children." "No," he corrected, turning her to face him. "I found a woman with so much love to give that it couldn't be contained by just 1 or 2 children. It took a whole schoolhouse full to do it justice." He kissed her forehead. "I'm the lucky one, Lucy James, don't ever forget that." As the snow fell softly outside the windows of the schoolhouse they had built together, Lucy leaned against the steady strength of the man who had helped her redefine family. Around them, children laughed and sang orphans no more, but beloved sons and daughters of the most unconventional and perfect family in the Montana Territory.